Do any of you ever struggle with getting upset at your kids when they just don't do what you want them to do, what you told them to do? And I just remember during that season, I don't know how long it lasted, is I just said, God, I need your word. I need you. And it would be a struggle to read my Bible. I'd open it up and it would just be all confusion. And Lord, and I remember waking Jim up in the middle of the night and say, would you please pray for me? I don't know what is going on. I'm just struggling. This is crazy.
Hey besties, it's Katie from Without a Crystal Ball. Welcome back to my channel. Let's talk about Josh Duggar because he just had 82 days added to his sentence and his new release date is in December 23rd of 2032. And yesterday we discussed the possibility that this could have been related to Josh Duggar having a cell phone. Now, the reason why I said this was because back in May, someone at Seagaville has a loved one that's in these dorms that are for model inmates. It's a system that's set up where the better you do, the more privileges you receive. And if you are in this one specific model inmate dorm, you get to do activities and have access to privileges that nobody else does. But in order to get into this dorm, you have to have good behavior and you have to sign like a code of conduct, apparently. And someone who had a loved one in these dorms posted on like May 17th that there had been a shakedown in the dorms and 6 cell phones had been found. So if cell phones are found, what happens is the individual that has the cell phone or is using the cell phone ends up being disciplined. And discipline can range from being put into the segregation housing unit, which is the SHU. They can also have time added on to their sentence. They can be restricted in the amount of money they get for commissary. They can have visitation restricted. They can have calls restricted. There's a whole list of disciplinary options that happen in federal prison. And Josh went through this back in 2023. He had a phone and he was placed in the SHU for a couple months. And then when he got out of the SHU, they added 40 or 51 days to his prison sentence. Now, this time around, Josh has had 82 days added to his prison sentence. Well, back in September of 2024, the Sun had reported that he had been moved into a renovated dorm with special amenities. And the amenities included painting the walls and getting flowers put into dorm 6 where he lives. It's been turned into an honors dorm. They get privileges and building updates because it's an honors dorm. There are washers and dryers, microwaves, and more. They're trying to create a dorm of model inmates. So most inmates don't get access to their own laundry. They don't get access to doing, microwaves for commissary. So, they're getting special privileges. They added that they can't have any disciplinary actions in a certain amount of time. They have to have a job and they have to sign a code of conduct agreement. They think that Josh was getting special treatment because he doesn't have the qualifications to even live in the dorm. He doesn't work, but he is getting a degree, and they're counting on that as an exception so he can stay. He would be disqualified according to their rules from living there because of his SHU time a couple of years ago, but they've decided to waive that for him. Now, I don't know if this has somehow changed, but Josh has always been in the same housing unit of Unit 6. So if he was in the unit housing 6 to begin with, and then they decided to turn it into a dorm for like good behavior, I'm not sure. But he, at that point, had already been in Unit 6. But apparently, at that point, they had decided to make Unit 6 into a dorm. Seagaville is a low security facility, so they don't live in cells. They don't have their doors locked. They're not behind bars. They have they have units that have 2 beds, 4 beds, 8 and 12. And depending on which house they live in, and there's a number of different units and buildings, they have different levels of security in terms of like what they have to do and, what kind of privileges they get. So he was apparently in this unit that had been changed to a higher, like a lower level, even within the low security. His specific house also was one of the few that had air conditioning. So apparently, when the new warden came in, there was a ton of shakedowns, and some people got caught with cell phones, contraband, and drugs, and people got disciplined. I don't know if obviously Josh was caught up at that time, but it appears it happened sometime in May, maybe between March and May that he got in trouble. This specific house, I mean, the Unit 6 was a luxury because there are people that are incarcerated at Seagoville in Texas that don't have air conditioning. And if you know anything about Texas, it gets extremely hot. So, he was someone that was benefiting from having accommodations that many people that are at Seagoville do not have. Well, apparently now someone told the Sun that he had been moved out of the dorm, and they said he's no longer living in the honors dorm. He has been transferred to a regular one, and they're not sure of why he was transferred out of the lavish dorm, but he had been living there for nearly a. Now, I don't know if this has somehow changed, but Josh has always been in the same housing unit of Unit 6. So if he was in the unit housing 6 to begin with, and then they decided to turn it into a dorm for like good behavior, I'm not sure. But he at that point had already been in Unit 6. But apparently at that point, they had decided to make Unit 6 into a dorm. So we know a couple things now. 2 months are added, and he's moved out of the dorm that he was in. That means he's literally been really messed up, right? And there is like a step that they can go through within the federal government and the prison system where inmates that are at low security facilities, if they have so many disciplinary actions within a specific amount of time, they can actually be moved from a low security facility into like a medium security or even to a max security if necessary. So there's like a lot of steps that happen to inmates when they get in trouble. It's also super common that inmates get transferred to different facilities while they're locked up. It's pretty common that an inmate will be at multiple facilities for their entire sentence. It's some stay in the same facility, but often they get transferred to different facilities. So if he's moved out of the specialty dorm, that means he's no longer a model prisoner, and I don't think he ever really was. Now he would be more than likely in a building that does not have air conditioning, meaning he'll be dealing with, heat and all of that goes into being a prisoner in Texas. And then if he were to continue with this kind of behavior and he still has phones, they can move him into another prison altogether where it's higher security and he gets even fewer privileges. So when you're locked up and you're trying to make the best of your life, most people, I mean, if they care about using this for their time for the right reasons to rehabilitate themselves and to do better in their lives and, use the time to get degrees or whatever it is, you try to make your time as effective as possible. It would appear that Josh is still entitled and living in this mindset that he can do whatever he wants, that he doesn't have to play by the rules. He doesn't have to, do what everyone else does. The fact that he's gotten 2 disciplinary actions is, I feel like this was predicted. All of this was predicted. When Josh was sentenced, there was this huge display from the family. Jim Bob got all of these people to write letters, and all of them promised the judge that this would be the only time that Josh would ever get in trouble. They would never be before the court with any other issues. He would be a model prisoner. He would not have any disciplinary actions. They literally promised that this one time should not represent the entirety of who Josh was. And the judge in the case was moved by the fact that he had so much support, so much so that he was, impressed with the fact that his devoted wife and mother and father were willing to dedicate their lives to help him rehabilitate once he gets out of prison. And they were going to offer all kinds of support. And the prosecutors in the case were not at all moved by anything that was written in the letters. In fact, their assessment of Josh was that he was, for all intents and purposes, someone that could never be reformed, that his level of entitlement and narcissism and mental games that he plays, he would never take for responsibility for what he's done. He would always find someone else to blame. They pointed out the fact that he kept pointing fingers at all these other people, even though there was no evidence. He continued to deny any responsibility. And the fact that he was denying any responsibility in the role, they said would probably mean that once he got to prison, he wouldn't do any of the programming necessary to rehabilitate, like the programs for SOs, because that would mean that he would have to admit that he had done something wrong. Because a part of the programs in Seagoville is that if you're going to go through the SO rehabilitation and the therapy programs that are offered to the inmates, they have to admit they did it. They have to admit they have victims. They have to admit that their behavior and their conduct is what landed them in Seagoville. And in order for them to properly reform and change behavior, they have to acknowledge that they're guilty. And he won't. And they said that he never will. They said that will never change because of who he is and because of his predilection to children. So he has this attraction to children. He won't accept that he has the attraction. He won't admit it. He won't acknowledge it. He has harmed other children, his sisters at one point. They were seriously concerned about Josh having any access to his children. They requested that the court give him 20 years in prison, and instead the judge said that he would only serve 12 and a half years. They said that Josh is one of the more dangerous offenders. The kind of content that he downloaded was some of the most disturbing and, awful. It's like the worst of the worst, the content that he downloaded onto his computer to look at. They made clear that Josh interfered with the Department of Human Services and CPS from interviewing his children. They made clear that they were concerned about if he is released and his children are minors, that he will have access to minor children, and that they were afraid that his children were victims. But because the kids were never interviewed, they could not ask the kids if the kids were victims of his. They wanted him locked up basically forever. And the judge gave him 12 and a half years. And then the judge said, well, after you get out, you'll get supervised release for another 20 years. But Josh is proving that even when he's locked up, he can't play by the rules. So how do they expect to have him released and play by the rules? To me, Josh is the kind of person that's not safe to be in society. If he's still accessing the internet and trying to get on cell phones when his crime and his sentence says he cannot have access to the internet and cannot have access to any cell phones that can contain data or store data or have electronic use where you can, look at videos and download the internet access, like his phone when he gets out cannot have internet access. He cannot have internet access when he gets out. He cannot look at any adult content, period. Like he's prohibited from it. Even adult content, even though it's legal, because it's such a problem in his life that they don't believe that if he started looking at the adult content, he wouldn't then somehow end up, again, downloading child CSAM. I will say that, in my opinion, the judge's sentence was a misjustice to all of the victims. It should have been so much more. And Josh has had so many people give him special treatment from the sentence he received to getting to live in an honors unit, even though he didn't deserve it. And now he's out of the honors unit finally. But at some point, there needs to be consequences that are actually meaningful to him. And so far, there have been none. And now I did a search about this house that Jim Bob bought that's in Fayetteville. And the house claims that it has like 6,000 square feet, but it really doesn't have 6,000 square feet. It's like 3,500 square feet inside. And then it has like a barn that has like other living quarters, or it's kind of like a warehouse that they've converted into living warehouse. So the main house isn't as big as I thought it was. But either way, if he's released, and when he's released, he can't live with kids. So he's not going to be able to live with Anna. I wish they could just add new charges to him while he's in prison. And I also think it's interesting that Jim Bob was able to buy that property for $1 million. And he also purchased a property that is a rental company. It's like a commercial building. He put down $1 million there. So in April, he spent $2 million on properties. He also sold a chunk of land to Walmart for $5 million. And so he has money. And yet Josh says he doesn't have money for attorneys. That to me just sounds like they're not paying for him anymore. when Jim Bob cuts you off, you done effed up, because that man has literally covered for him for years. So tell me what your thoughts are about the new development in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't subscribed, and click the bell so you never miss a video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye, besties.